feel that power. Woohoo! Well, good morning, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are YouTube. Well, I was going to shoot a little bit of a vloggy kind of video today. It's a nice, beautiful, clear day, and I thought there's a place I wanted to go and visit called Land Beach, and I've not been for many years. I know what I used to go there for is no longer there. I wanted to go and have a look and catch up because I see people like Paddy Outback out in Australia, and he goes and sees all these amazing places. And yes, because it's Australia, it's summer. It's January in, well, at the moment Bedfordshire, but Bedfordshire, Buckinghamshire, home counties, is not quite the same thing. So instead, I gave up because it was a bit on the cold side, so I've got to cut that journey short. I'll shoot that video another time. But there is also something very significant that happened this weekend, and that's for everyone that rides a motorcycle, drives, in fact uses a road in any capacity here in the UK, and that's some changes to the highway code, and have not been well publicised. There's been a lot of criticism about the lack of publicity on them. But basically what they've introduced is a hierarchy of road users, and the whole idea of that is that it gives more weight to more vulnerable road users. So at the top of the hierarchy, of course, are pedestrians, which basically now have a little short of a free-for-all on the roads, which is going to cause some big problems. And then, of course, you've got cyclists, then horse riders, which is interesting, motorcyclists, cars, vans, trucks and buses. So the bigger your vehicle is, and effectively the more harm it can do, the more responsibility is placed upon you. So this is going to have some interesting implications. Now, we've had a rule for a long time, and I believe most countries do a similar sort of thing, where if someone is crossing a road you're turning into, they have right of way, obviously, so you don't just plough them down. That's now changed somewhat. So even a pedestrian that's walking up to a road you're going to turn into, they don't have to stop and let the cars past, the cars have to stop and let them past. So basically, when you're driving around an urban area and you come to any sort of junction you're about to turn into, if there's pedestrians, you have to just stop in the road, wave them across. Otherwise, you could find yourself in trouble. And if you hit a pedestrian that just walks out in front of you, you're at fault. That's going to cause some problems where you've got 40 to 60 mile an hour zones. Because basically what it means is, I hate saying basically so much, what it means is that you're going to find cars that were turning into junctions at a normal speed, especially if they're like a wide filter kind of junction, that they maybe would have turned into a 20 or 30 miles an hour from a, say, a 60 zone, because they're not T-junctions, they've got a lane that breaks off. They're now going to have to go in much slower. And if that catches someone off guard that isn't expecting it, there could be potential for a collision there. So I'm not sure that's been very well thought out. And there seems to be, there's a lot of common sense rules, like there's now guidance on the speed you should pass a horse. I reckon no more than 10 miles an hour. Well, that makes sense because horses are very unpredictable animals. And also they've said you should allow 2 metres. So that's basically the length of, or some of the length of a horse, most of the length of a horse. Because a horse can just stop and turn around at any time, particularly if it's spooked. So that kind of makes sense. But another one that really doesn't is they're encouraging cyclists to take up more of their lane. And I think what the issue is that cyclists, some tend to stay by the verge quite reasonably, some cycle to abreast or sit further out. And because there's no legally required test for a bicycle, there's no consistency. And they're saying 1.5 metres to pass a cyclist, and I can't remember the exact list of the exact numbers, but it's something like 1.2 and up to up to a 30 zone, and then 1.5 onwards. It might be 1.5, 2 metres. I'm not absolutely sure. I'm a bit hazy on that one. But that gives, obviously, the requirement, near as Maitland was, especially as they're encouraging cyclists to cycle further into their lane, that you basically have to use the other side of the road to pass a bicycle. Again, on a road like this, you can see there's 10% of nothing around. It's not going to create a problem. So this car here would have to slow down and stop, although they virtually did. There's a pedestrian crossing there. So your cyclists are going to cycle about here now. So to get your full 1.5 to 2 metres to overtake, you have to use the opposite lane. That's fine in principle, but it does leave the question mark on roads with limited visibility. Are they just going to end up going at cycling speeds where the cyclist cycling in a reasonable position could much more easily be overtaken? Now, I absolutely support protecting users on the road, and unfortunately you can't seem to allow for common sense because some people simply don't have it. But it's going to be something. There's also new rules regarding charging electric vehicles and not having charging cables across the pavement, which is going to affect this. This road is terrible. It's going to affect a lot of people in London, although that's a rule people have brought about themselves, and it's further proof that you can't really rely on common sense, because people have basically been selfish and inconsiderate with charging cables, and as a result have needed this new rule to be made. So I'll pop a link down if I can find one on the changes on the highway code, how it affects people. There is very little mentioned about motorcycles in it. Now I know obviously on the hierarchy of road users we sit between horse riders and cars. No, it doesn't actually say what that involves. So I'm going to read through it with some interest. So sorry it's a bit of a boring video and not what I was planning on shooting. I'm going to have a bit of a different ZZR video coming up soon, because it won't be so much on the race bike, but you may remember a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, I did a video comparing a ZZR 1100 to ZZR 1400. What we're going to do in this one is actually compare a low mileage immaculate ZZR 1400 with a high mileage but still quite tidy ZZR 1400, and how much difference does 40,000 miles actually make to these bikes. So can't wait to shoot that one. That's going to be coming up fairly soon. There's also going to be a huge road trip coming up, and I do mean huge, so you'll just have to wait and sit tight on that one. In the meantime, do like and share and subscribe to these videos. I'm going to wait for a gap in this traffic and see you in another video.